Nothing is crashing. So why does housing feel harder than ever? This isn't the kind of crisis you see on the news. It's the kind you feel. Month after month. And if you're trying to survive it without breaking yourself, this story is for you. No sirens. No breaking news. No screaming headlines. The stock market didn't collapse overnight. Banks aren't failing on the evening news. Nothing looks like an emergency. And yet, something feels off. Imagine this. You have a steady job. You pay your rent on time. You're not reckless with money. You've done what you were told to do. One night, you open Zillow. Or Redfin, the listing site. You type in a price that feels reasonable. Then you open a mortgage calculator. You stare at the monthly payment. You adjust the numbers. You try again. And quietly, without saying anything out loud, you close the tab. Not because you're lazy. Not because you didn't try hard enough. But because the math doesn't breathe. Nothing dramatic happened. No big mistake. No sudden disaster. It just doesn't work. And that's the strange part. If this were a real crisis, you'd expect panic. You'd expect fear. You'd expect headlines. But instead, it's happening quietly. Rents go up a little at a time. Down payments drift further away. Monthly payments feel heavier than they used to. No alarm bells. Just pressure. A pressure that slowly changes how people live. You delay buying. You delay moving. You delay starting a family. You delay making plans. And over time, you start wondering, is this just how things are now? Did I miss something? Did I fall behind without realizing it? This isn't a loud crisis. It doesn't announce itself. It's a silent one. And the danger of a silent crisis is that people don't notice it until they're already stuck inside it. If this sounds familiar, it's not because you failed. It's because the rules changed without warning. If this feels familiar, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not bad with money. You're not irresponsible. And you didn't suddenly forget how adulthood works. For a long time, the advice was simple. Get a job. Be responsible. Save. Buy a home. And for a while, that path actually worked. But something changed. Not loudly. Not all at once. And not in a way that made headlines. The rules didn't break. They shifted. Quietly. Housing stopped being just a place to live. It slowly turned into something else. An asset. A store of value. A financial product. And when that happened, the pressure didn't disappear. It moved. It moved from the system. Onto people. Onto monthly payments. Onto down payments. Onto timing. Onto fear. So when you feel like you're running but not moving, it's not because you slowed down. It's because the ground moved under your feet. Most people don't notice this right away. They keep doing what used to work. They save a little more. They wait a little longer. They tell themselves, just one more year. And that's where the danger starts. Not because waiting is wrong, but because waiting without understanding the new rules leads people into quiet traps. This video isn't here to scare you. And it's not here to shame you. It's here to do something much simpler. To help you see the game you're actually in now. So you can stop blaming yourself. And start making decisions that protect you. Once you understand how the rules changed, the next question becomes simple. What should you actually do now? Before we go any further, let me be clear about one thing. This video is not here to predict the market. It's not here to tell you when prices will fall. And it's definitely not here to tell you what you must do. That's not useful. And it's not honest. What this video is here to do is something much more practical. By the end of this, you'll have 3 things. First, you'll understand how the housing game actually works now. not how it used to work, and not how people wish it still worked. Second, you'll see the 3 quiet traps that get regular people stuck for years. Not dramatic mistakes. Quiet ones. The kind that don't feel dangerous at first. And third, this is the important part. You'll have a simple way to think through your own situation. Using your numbers, your job, and your life. Not a rule to follow. Not a prediction to trust. A framework. So instead of asking, "Is now a good time to buy?" you'll be able to ask a better question. Would this decision protect me? Or slowly trap me? You don't need perfect timing. You don't need secret knowledge. You need clarity. And you need protection. That's what we're building here. To do that, we first need to look at how housing actually works today. Starting with the 2 forces that quietly shape everything. Before we talk about what to do, we need to understand one thing clearly. Not every detail. Not every chart. Just the parts that actually affect your life. Let's start with the force people talk about the most. Interest rates. Here's what interest rates really change: your monthly payment. Most people think interest rates decide home prices. They don't. At least, not at first. What interest rates really decide is who can survive the monthly payment. When rates are low, a lot of people can afford the same house. Not because the house is cheaper, but because the payment feels lighter. When rates go up, the house doesn't suddenly disappear. The price might not even move much, but the payment changes immediately. That's where the pressure starts. A higher rate doesn't scream. It whispers. It quietly takes away breathing room. Suddenly, the same house means this: less cash at the end of the month, less flexibility, and more stress if anything goes wrong. That's why focusing only on prices misses the point. The real risk isn't the number on the listing. It's whether your life can absorb the payment. Month after month. Year after year. So when people say, rates will come down, the question you should be asking isn't about timing. It's this: can I survive if they don't? Because your mortgage doesn't care about predictions. It only cares about payments. Now let's talk about supply and demand. Housing doesn't behave like phones or cars. You can't just make more overnight. And you can't force people to sell when prices are high. When prices rise, most homeowners don't rush to sell. They hold. They wait. They protect what they have. That means fewer homes come onto the market, even when prices are already high. At the same time, new homes take years to plan and build. And builders don't rush to create smaller, cheaper homes. When larger, more expensive ones bring higher profits. So what happens? Supply grows slowly. Very slowly. Demand, on the other hand, can change quickly. A small shift in rates. A wave of people afraid of missing out. A few headlines about getting left behind. And suddenly, more people are chasing the same limited number of homes. That's when pressure builds. Not because everyone suddenly needs a home at the same time, but because fear compresses decisions. People stop asking, "Is this right for me?" They start asking, "Can I still get in?" That's how waiting turns into panic. This is why phrases like, "Just wait for more supply," sound comforting, but often don't work the way people expect. Supply moves slowly. Fear moves fast. And when fear shows up, it doesn't make good decisions. Here's the part people often miss. Interest rates and supply don't act alone. They feed into each other. Higher rates make payments harder. Harder payments reduce flexibility. Reduced flexibility makes people more cautious. Or more desperate. Some people freeze. Others rush. And both reactions can lead to bad outcomes if you don't understand what's happening underneath. This is how housing becomes stressful. without ever looking like a crisis. No crash. No collapse. Just pressure. Pressure that slowly changes behavior. And over time, changes lives. If rates and supply are only part of the story, the next question is obvious. Why do solutions so often make things worse? Before we talk about traps, there's one question that comes up again and again. If rates are the problem, why doesn't the Fed just fix it? That sounds reasonable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The Fed doesn't set rates to make homes affordable. That's not its job. The Fed raises or cuts rates to slow down or cool off the entire economy. It looks at things like inflation, jobs, overall demand, not whether a regular household can comfortably handle a mortgage payment. So when rates go up, it's not a message to homebuyers. It's a brake on the whole system. And when rates eventually come down, they don't come down for you. They come down because the economy needs it. That's why waiting for the Fed to fix your housing decision is a risky strategy. Your mortgage doesn't care why rates moved. It only cares what your payment is. Now let's talk about policy. Most housing policies are designed to help buyers. Tax credits, first-time buyer programs, lower down payment options. They sound good. And on the surface, they are. But there's a problem. When you make it easier for more people to buy, without building more homes quickly, you increase demand. Demand rises faster than supply. And prices follow. So the very programs meant to help often end up helping prices instead. Early buyers benefit. Later buyers pay more. This isn't because policymakers are evil. It's because housing moves slowly. You can change rules overnight. You can't add homes overnight. And in that gap, pressure builds. That's why so many people feel confused. How can there be help everywhere and affordability nowhere? The system isn't broken in one place. It's misaligned across many. Policies may change. Programs may come and go. But once you sign a mortgage, you're locked into reality, not intentions. Now we need to talk about cycles. Housing does move in cycles. But not like stocks. Not like crypto. It moves slowly. Prices rise slowly. They fall slowly. And most of the damage happens in between. The most dangerous moment isn't when things look bad. It's when things look safe. When people say, "This time feels different." When everyone is calm. When risk feels normal. That's when people stretch. They stretch payments. They stretch assumptions. They stretch their future. Because housing doesn't punish mistakes quickly. It traps slowly. A bad stock trade hurts fast. A bad housing decision can hurt for 10 years. And by the time the cycle turns, it's often too late to undo the choice. This is why timing the housing market is so hard. Not because cycles don't exist, but because they don't announce themselves. You only see the cycle clearly when you're already inside it. Put this together. The Fed moves for reasons that have nothing to do with your comfort. Policy tries to help, but often pushes prices higher. And housing cycles move slowly, trapping people quietly. That's not a moral judgment. It's a mechanical one. And once you see it, the question changes. It's no longer, will prices go up or down? It becomes, will this decision keep me flexible or lock me in during the wrong part of the cycle? That's the question most people don't ask. And that's why so many get stuck. Once you understand how the system moves, the next step is critical. Recognizing the quiet mistakes that trap people inside it. At this point, most people don't fail because they lack information. They fail because they walk into traps that don't look dangerous, These aren't loud mistakes. They don't feel reckless. They don't feel irresponsible. They feel reasonable. Let's talk about the three most common ones. It often starts with a quiet fear. I just don't want to be left behind. This doesn't start with greed. It starts with fear. You see prices stay high. You hear stories of people who bought earlier. You feel the clock ticking. And somewhere along the way, the question changes. Not, is this right for me? But, can I still get in? So you stretch. You accept a higher payment than you're comfortable with. You tell yourself it's temporary. You assume things will get easier later. Sometimes they do. But sometimes they don't. And when they don't, you don't just own a home. The payment owns you. This isn't about timing the market wrong. It's about letting fear decide how much pressure you're willing to live with. For others, it looks like success from the outside. I own a home, but I can't breathe. You bought the house. You did the thing. You crossed the line people talk about. But inside, everything feels tight. Most of your income goes to housing. Unexpected expenses feel dangerous. Changing jobs feels impossible. You're not broke, but you're stuck. And this is the part most people don't see coming. Most people don't realize this until years later. When changing jobs costs more than staying unhappy. A house-poor life doesn't show up on spreadsheets. It shows up in stress, in anxiety, in decisions you don't make, because you can't afford the risk. Owning a home should give you stability. When it takes away flexibility, that's not ownership. That's a trade you may not realize you made. And sometimes, the pressure doesn't come from money at all. Everyone else seems to be doing it. This one is subtle. It doesn't come from the market. It comes from people. Friends buying homes. Family asking questions. Social media showing milestones. And even if no one says it directly, the message is clear. This is what progress looks like. So you start measuring your life against someone else's timeline. You buy not because it fits your life, but because you don't want to feel behind. That's how social pressure turns into financial pressure. And the market doesn't care why you bought. It only cares that you did. None of these traps feel extreme. That's the problem. They don't blow things up overnight. They quietly reduce your options. Less cash. Less flexibility. Less room to adapt. And when the cycle turns, or life changes, those lost options matter a lot. Avoiding these traps isn't about luck or timing. It's about having a simple way to decide before pressure decides for you. Up to now, we've talked about how the system moves. And we've talked about the traps people fall into. So the question becomes simple. How do you decide? Without guessing the market. Without waiting for perfect timing. And without breaking yourself? Here's the shift that matters. You stop asking, is now a good time to buy? And you start asking, would this decision still hold up if things don't go my way? This isn't about being pessimistic. It's about being prepared. Start with breathing room. Before anything else, ask yourself one quiet question. If my income dropped tomorrow, how long could I stay afloat? Without panic? Not how long you could survive on paper. How long you could actually breathe. Because housing payments are unforgiving. They show up every month. No matter what else is happening in your life. If buying a home leaves you with no margin for error, that's not stability. That's exposure. Then look at flexibility, not upside. A lot of people focus on appreciation, on what could go right. A better question is, what would this decision prevent me from doing? Would you still be able to change jobs? If a better opportunity came up, would you still be able to move? If life pulled you somewhere else, would you still be able to take a risk? If staying safe became uncomfortable? Flexibility is invisible until you lose it. And once it's gone, it's very expensive to buy back. Now pay attention to the payment, not the price. Listings are loud. Prices grab attention. But your life is shaped by one number only: the monthly payment. Ask yourself this. After the payment goes out, does your life still feel manageable? Or does everything else start to feel tight? A payment that looks fine on a spreadsheet can feel very different when it shows up month after month. This isn't about being conservative. It's about being honest about how much pressure you want to live with. And finally, think about exits, even if you don't plan to leave. Most people don't like this part. It feels uncomfortable. But it matters. If things changed, how hard would it be to get out? Could you sell without losing sleep? Could you rent it out without stress? Could you walk away without damage? You don't plan exits because you expect failure. You plan them because life moves, and housing decisions last a long time. Here's the point of all this. You don't need perfect answers. You don't need forecasts. You need a decision that still works when conditions aren't ideal. Different people have different numbers, different jobs, different lives. But the survival rules are the same. Protect your breathing room. Protect your flexibility. And don't confuse pressure with progress. If a decision keeps you adaptable, it buys you time. And time is what keeps you safe in a system that moves slowly and traps quietly. Once you stop measuring success by ownership, a very different picture starts to emerge. At this point, a lot of people feel something unexpected. Not panic, not urgency, but relief. Because once you stop measuring success by ownership alone, the picture changes. You realize something important. Not buying right now doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you missed your chance. And it definitely doesn't mean you're behind in life. It means you're adapting to the world as it actually is, not the one people still talk about. For a long time, homeownership was a clear milestone. Buy a house, settle down, build stability. That story worked when prices, incomes, and payments moved together. They don't anymore. And pretending they still do creates pressure where there doesn't need to be any. Renting isn't losing. Waiting isn't weakness. And flexibility isn't failure. In a system that moves slowly and changes quietly, being able to adjust is a form of strength. Some people will buy. Some will wait. Some will choose something in between. None of those paths are wrong on their own. The mistake isn't renting. The mistake isn't buying. The mistake is making a long-term decision under short-term pressure. If you're protecting your breathing room, keeping your options open, and making choices you can live with, even if things don't go perfectly, you're not falling behind. You're staying in control. And in a housing system that traps people slowly, control is worth more than rushing into the next milestone. I can't decide for you, but I can help you think clearly as you decide for yourself. I can't tell you whether you should buy or not. No one honestly can. Your life is different. Your numbers are different. Your risks are different. What I can do is help you think clearly before you make a decision that stays with you for years. This channel isn't about predictions. It's not about hype. And it's not about telling people what they want to hear. It's about understanding the system you're in and protecting yourself inside it. Because you don't need to beat the housing market. You don't need perfect timing. You just need to avoid decisions that quietly trap you. If this way of thinking helped you, that's what this channel is here for. And if you want to keep learning how money systems really work, calmly, clearly, and without fear, you know where to find me. Thanks for listening.